he wanted to get sub 7. He wanted to get sub 6. He was tired of, playing second fiddle. And that stuff is good.
How's it going, everyone? Overinspected back here again. Manu and Michael Chai on the mic. How's it going, Michael? This is the second episode in our cool little new Overinspected refresh. And we got a fun one today. We're recording this the week before NAC, just to kick off our championship summer. Well, you could argue it's already started. But how do you feel, Michael? I mean, we're going into this. I mean, you're going to go to All-Stars. I'm going to All-Stars. Then we're both going to be at NAC. There's just a bunch of action back to back.
Yeah, this is an interesting championship season. A lot of regionals are happening right now. We got Western Champs that's coming up in August as well. But right now, our primary focus, as of this Tuesday, I want to say July 16th, you guys will be seeing Rubik's North America All-Stars at the Mall of America. That's going to be amazing. There's going to be a broadcast on the Rubik's official channel. Please check it out. Actually, I believe, Manu, you're going to be commentating with one of our board members, right?
Yep, exactly. It's going to be me and Nick Silvestri.
So that's awesome. So obviously we're going to talk a little bit about that, but obviously the most important thing is North American Championships. Me and Manu are both going. You guys are going to see us at various areas of the competition. Manu, I believe, again, you're going to be a part of the broadcast once again on the Rubik's official channel.
Indeed.
Yeah. Are you excited about that?
I'm so hyped. Every time I get to broadcast and talk at this national stage, I mean, it's also going to go on the WCA channel, which I think might be the first time it's a bit like a competition other than Worlds has been on the WCA channel. I think that's just so hype. It reaches so many people, and I'm really excited to reach more people throughout the various channels. I think it'll be a blast. The commentary team is excellent. If you've seen the Cubing USA Instagram posts, and I think just being there, that environment, it's just gonna be so cool.
And from my understanding, Happy Feet Productions is doing everything for these broadcasts, and they got a lot of stuff up their sleeve. So we're really excited to see that. But yeah, this podcast episode, we definitely wanted to talk about the championship environment and what that might look like. But let's start off maybe pretty simple. Let's start off by talking about the big deal, right? So do we want to talk about some predictions for North American Championships and 3x3?
Dude, let's start cooking, because I think so. First of all, whoever is gonna make finals is also kind of up in the air, right? Right now, if you look at the psych sheet, sub 6 average is what makes finals. And now obviously not everyone is going to get that. Well, one of the people is also Yihang, who is not going to show up. But in any case, if we see some environment like that, that's going to be electric. Although I think it'll be more sub 7 average is probably going to make finals. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure sub 7 is going to be a good metric for 3x3 finals. When it really gets to that speed, it's anyone's call. Really, if you were at Worlds last year, you would know that if you weren't sub 6, you sort of had no shot. I would say that this environment is similarly competitive in that sense, and it's ultimately a toss-up. So I'll start off with my prediction, right?
Yeah, go for it.
I believe that Madi Hiroto Inaba from Hawaii is going to repeat as the North American champion. So he won in 2022. He's going to place his stamp on the 2024 NAC season, and he's going to be the repeat champion. I'm so excited to see him solve. And
dude,
he's gonna pop off that competition.
Maddie's solving recently, at least in official competitions, has just been amazing. I mean, we were at the competition, Bayer Speedcubing 63. That was a competition where he got 2 3s. I think the only person to ever have gotten more than 1 3 in one competition is Yihang. It's the only other person to ever have done it. I think he became the 14th person to ever get a 3-second solve. He's WR6 now. Maddie's solving is just insane. I feel like his solving was insane last year too, and the year before that. And it's just amazing. Maddie's vision of the cube is just so different. And if you haven't seen those 3s, you have to go and check them out. Especially that second one that happened in finals. That one is so good. The solution is so good, completely fluid. Maddie, I think, is definitely one of my favorites to at least get onto the podium.
Yeah, I think Maddie, I mean, as far as averages are concerned, I'm not really too concerned about what the average is. The winning average, generally speaking, the averages that win these types of competitions are pretty slow. The
Yeah.
world's podium was an extreme outlier. I don't know
Yes.
how they won with such competitive results. I forgot what
Yeah.
Max got, but it was like low 5, which is definitely not what
Yeah.
I expect out of this, right? They're
Yeah.
probably going to feel nervous. There's going to be some it's going to feel tight. It's going to be really tense as all, the finalists, 16 finalists are going to walk onto the podium. It's not going to be easy, right?
But no, definitely not. I mean, it's one thing to do a head-to-head competition in like your local competition, right? And even that's kind of nerve-wracking. But to do it in like, I would say that this is the biggest stage. It's gonna go across to not only everyone who's in the venue, but also broadcast across all these channels to the Rubik's official channel, reaching thousands and thousands of people. It's definitely not going to be easy, and the nerves are going to play a huge part. And that's such a big story, I think, going into this NAC. Compared to a lot of other competitions that have happened.
Right. Now, I'm going to make an outlandish prediction here.
Okay, let's hear it.
Madihiro Inaba, as people know, is my favorite cuber. I believe he's definitely going to get more threes at this competition.
Wow.
My spidey senses are tingling, guys. He has the turning that you need to beat 313.
That's a prediction.
That's a prediction. I don't know, but when you watch Maddie solve, it's interesting because he has that interesting mix of efficiency and turn speed. If you watch Yiheng solve, who is the undisputed #1 cuber in the world right now, like in a vacuum, I would say that Yiheng is probably he has better TPS, but that's because he doesn't lock up as nearly as much as Maddie. But in raw turn speed, Maddie has the potential to do something similar and just as fast as Yiheng. It just requires the right solution.
Yeah, definitely.
And then, sometimes when the world record is this low now, when the times are this fast, sometimes efficiency is not enough. And that's just the truth. Like, efficiency will only get you so far, and you need to push your boundaries as much as you can for your finger reflexes.
Even if you have a 30 move solution, if you have 5 TPS, which is still like pretty fast, right? If you average 5 TPS, you're gonna get a 6-second solve, even if you have a 30 move solution. So you definitely need to balance being able to solve efficiently and also just being able to do a ton of solves or a ton of moves fast. Batty is definitely, his solving is just amazing. I enjoy watching it so much. I'm gonna put a pick. So I'm gonna put a pick for a podium because I think it's a little bit more exciting.
Okay, that is spicy, yeah.
So I think Dilly Millie is gonna make it onto the podium this year.
Our man Dilly Millie.
I think, and that's Dylan Miller, by the way. I feel like out of all like the top solvers, I feel like he's kind of underrated. Like, I don't hear a lot of stuff like being mentioned about him, and I know that like he's been going kind of ham on the YouTube recently. Where he's got a lot of streams up, so he's practicing hard.
He's also got spicy takes. Yeah,
he has really spicy takes.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to see him in finals. I think he has a really good shot to make it onto the podium. I think it'll be so sick. I feel like Dilly Millie is like someone that we've known like at least somewhat personally for a while. So I'm rooting for him. Hopefully he can get onto the podium.
Yeah. Do you have a winner that you think is going to take the cake here?
It's so tough to pick a winner, right? Because there's so many like the top 20 are all like world-class solvers. I mean, how do you pick between Max, Timon, Luke, Maddie, and so many others? Nam also.
Not even Luke. It's both Lukes.
Both Lukes. That's a good point. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's so tough. I think I know. I think Max is still going to take it.
Max Park. Okay.
I think Max Park is going to take
it. The classic Max selection between us.
I mean, he's just proven himself over and over again in like these high stress scenarios, and he just has the experience under his belt to really back up whatever bid he has going in. Max may not be in like the top like 4 seeds like going into finals, But honestly, that might work better for him. At Worlds, he wasn't in the top 2 seeds, but he absolutely clutched the last solve to win World Championships. Same thing at Nats last year. I want to say he was like the 5th seed going into finals. It's weird, right? Here we are, like, he's the current world record holder, has many world records across all of the events. But I think if he can get in the zone, then Max's vision is just absurd, absolutely absurd.
Yep.
And I'm rooting for him. I think he has a really good chance to back up his Nats title from last year and claim the North American title this year.
Yeah, and if you guys are listening for the first time and you're not aware, Max Park is the current world champion for the 3x3 cube.
Right.
Right. He won that last year, and of course, he also is the U.S. Nationals champion for 3x3.
Yeah.
But Max Park has so many accolades, but that point, it brings up an interesting discussion to be had here that I wanted to discuss with you, Manu.
Let's hear it.
Remember in one of our previous podcast episodes, so it's actually called Inside the Mind of Madahiro Doinaba. You should definitely go check it out.
That has to be one of the best episodes we've ever recorded, simply because of Maddie. Maddie is an absolute genius.
Yeah, it's the stuff that he says that's really interesting, and this is our first time really having a deep dive into the mentality and the mental fortitude of a world-class speedcuber. I think recently content has been leaning in that direction. But the reason why we find it so interesting is because at the very top level, all of these guys are to some extent equally fast and equally as skilled. And the thing that separates them is how they perform under pressure and how they deal with the nerves, the stress, and how they calm their minds before a competition. So the reason why Max Park is a fantastic pick, as you mentioned, is that experience. Max Park has got to be one of the most experienced big competition speedcubers out there.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
He has this reputation that nothing phases him, and I think that's absolutely true. And when nothing phases you, that's when you're going to be at your best. Now, of course, I'm sure that's folklore. Everyone gets, adjusted to some extent by the stress, but he handles it very well. Yeah, so that would be he just solves really well under pressure, so I think that's a great pick. But what do you think about that overarching theme of mentality to top cubers?
I think it's gonna matter more and more, because in the past there were a lot of differences between cubers. Some cubers were more TPS heavy, some people were more efficiency focused. Now that difference I feel is narrowing. There are still Yiheng still feels like his TPS is insane, but now his efficiency is also caught up. Max used to be very TPS-y, but now his solutions are looking better and better. I think that gap is narrowing. So then there are only so many things that can differentiate one competitor from another. And something that was not talked about for many years was definitely what goes on up here. And I think it's going to be more. I think I really got a sense of that when we talked to Maddie in San Diego. I guess it was last year. That stuff is stuff that the top competitors are always thinking about, and always trying to kind of handle the pressure, putting themselves in those scenarios at home. I was talking to Felix last week, and one of the things that he used to do was he would schedule a time to do an average of 5. He gets one average of 5 a day, and that's it. He puts it on the calendar, 3 p.m. today, I get one average of 5. I do one solve, I get up, walk away, chill out for 5 minutes, because that's how it works at the competition, right? There's some downtime between solves. Comes back, does another solve for a whole average of 5 to finish that average and get something really good. I think that's the kind of mentality that I think is going to be more and more prevalent in cubing, and I'm all for it because I think it makes it more hype. The clutch factor is really going to be important, which means we get to see better solving. So who can say no to that?
Yeah, I would say using that metric, if there was a metric for speedcubing in that sense, the clutch factor, dude, Max Park has the clutch factor.
So many times he's clutched up.
The Worlds 2023 was his magnum opus of clutch.
Yeah, so good.
He had so many people doubting him because obviously there's a lot of new waves of cubers, because prior to that, Max Park was quite dominant in the results area, but he showed why he could still be considered the best and is considered the world champion, right?
Yeah.
It is absolutely amazing to see him solve. We also wanted to tell the story a little bit and paint the picture of why this is important too. Max Park, he's a fantastic cuber and arguably the greatest cuber of our lifetime, right? You can debate who is, but it is arguable, right? He is in that picture.
Definitely.
But one of the things that's interesting is Max Park has also failed before too. There have been many times where it's been very difficult for him, and then that brings up the recent failures that we saw at the previous World Championships, in that Yiheng was the clear favorite, right? And then he wasn't able to complete the mission. But Felix was not able to complete the mission some years too.
Yep.
Max was not able to. Everyone has failed at some point. So let's talk a little bit about that. How do you think Yiheng is going to do, and where do you think maybe if he has a lot of awareness of what's going on around him with all the stressors?
There's so many stressors for Yiheng. I mean, I feel like all eyes are on Yiheng all the time. It doesn't even matter if it's like a major championship. Literally every single time, because he has the chance to get the world record, there's so much attention on him. And at his age, it's just so remarkable how he's able to kind of like channel that almost. I mean, you could see, like, watch the footage of the 436 world record average, right? There are so many people like crowding around, and and it's like in like an open environment. It's not like where like the crowd is like 20 feet, 30 feet away from you. You're up on the stage and there's everyone else. The crowd is like right there. They're like 5 feet away, and they're all watching. They're watching every single part of the solve. It's not only like, oh, the solve is great. They're watching the timer start, the timer stop. Everything is being scrutinized. So you have to think that like you would think any normal person, it would get to their head, but it's either his coaching or just his mentality. I think it's just incredible. One of the things that I said a while ago, when Yiheng failed his world record, we have an episode on that too. Yiheng's failed world record. You can listen to that if you want. It was just a matter of time for him before he would be in the conversation again. I think it's the same thing. Everyone is going to mention, Max was the one who came out on top, Worlds 2013. But second place, Yiheng, he only got second by 0.01. And that was on a pretty sub-average solve. Any day of the week, Yiheng takes that. Most days of the week, he takes that, right? So I think it's just a matter of time before Yiheng gets the trophies that or the titles. But I mean, he has that dog in him,
Mm-hmm.
He has the potential and capability, and so I think he's got it.
Yeah, and look, the fact of the matter is, obviously Yiheng or his family, I don't think they're going to listen to us and what we think our predictions are going to turn out to be, right? Like, they probably don't know that we're predicting that Maddie or Max is trying to win NAC, or that's who we think is going to win. But the more important thing to take away from this is, if there's anyone that's doubting you, that's going to be something that you can use as motivation.
Yes.
And you have a target. You always want the approach that someone is better than you, that you have something to chase. So again, want to reference that podcast with Maddie. The only reason that Maddie improved as quickly as he did was, one, quarantine, but two, most importantly, every time when he attended a competition earlier in the days, he would get completely dominated by Max, and that fueled him.
Right.
He wanted to get sub 7. He wanted to get sub 6. He was tired of playing second fiddle, and that stuff is good. A healthy amount of critique and feedback is good, so that you have a target to chase. So don't take it as something that you can't overcome, because you can definitely overcome anything. And Yiheng, if you're watching this, you should definitely do your very best and be okay with the outcome. Understand that as long as you put in your best effort, that's all that really matters. And hopefully for anyone else listening to this, that they get the same message here too.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that that Luke Greiser mentioned in his interview. Great interview, Matthew Marinick. Go check that out, by the way. Is his goal is to do his best. And, there are so many other factors outside of your control. Cubing is that kind of thing, right? It's not head to head so much. So there are so many factors outside your control. You can't control if the other person is just going to pop off, right? But as long as you do your best, that is really what matters. You have to put your all onto on the floor. And I think even though Yiheng is not going to be at NEC, I think he definitely has that mentality. And he has that capability inside of him. And honestly, I think as he gets older, he's probably just going to get better at it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but I absolutely agree. And it all plays into this like mentality thing that is just so interesting. So
Yeah.
interesting.
This is like the sports psychology stuff is so fun just to kind of see where people's mental state are, in
Yeah.
all of this, because it is competitive. Any top keeper would admit this is extremely competitive.
Yeah.
I have an analogy, and tell me if I'm really off base.
Let's hear it.
Obviously, people have related speedcubing to track and field, right, to some extent, or specifically track, right? In a lot of ways it's like a sprint, or maybe it's somewhat of a marathon depending on the event. The analogy I have is think about like a longer event. Think about like 1,000 meters or even a marathon in itself, right? One of the reasons why Max's experience is so important is because he knows that he has a target to chase and he knows exactly what he needs. Now, you need to have a target. If you're number one, it's hard to have a target, right? So for Yihang, his target is, let me get my PB, right? Let me get my PR. That's a target for him because he's already in pole position. So a lot of the times in marathons, you'll see people who start out or even midway through the marathon being first place really suffer at the end, right? It's usually the second, third, fourth place runners that have that pacing. The pole position paces them, and they're able to reach the finish line in first because they know when to overtake and they conserved enough energy. Now, for 3x3, we have 4 rounds of 3x3, right? So when you think about it, as long as you make the top 16, does it really matter if you're 16th or if you're first?
It almost doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. As long as you made the top 16, you know when it's time to turn it on. That's where the experience comes in, and that's why Max Park is so amazing, and that's why ultimately the C's are not going to matter.
Yeah. I think. Well, I'll make a small caveat. So whoever gets into this finals is definitely going to be hype out of their minds, right? If the 16th seed is going to be at least relatively competitive, but I don't know if the 16th seed is going to be able to get to like the podium, right? But I mean, making it into finals is no joke. I want to make that very clear. But I agree. At some point, like where you are doesn't really matter that much. Because also the competitors are going to have no knowledge of what the people before them have gotten either. So you're basically starting blank slate. It's like that Felix drill. You're just in a green room. You know what time you're going to come out. You're thinking about that all day. And then you show up, you have 5 solves, it's that moment, and that's it. Nothing else matters. It doesn't really even matter what the other person is doing.
Yeah. I think that stuff is so interesting to me. So, yeah, competitors, just make sure you make the top 16, right? Like, if that's your goal to podium, just make top 16. The seed at this level is not going to matter so much. So hopefully that's a great analogy. At least I thought it was.
Yeah, no, I think it makes a lot of sense. These are all things I've talked about with Sean also. I think last time I mentioned it with him was in Mexico. And
Yeah.
I know he definitely thinks a lot about it, and I'm sure that part of that is why Max is so successful, because, Sean, as someone who's done like competitive sports and stuff, is able to kind of teach that, and his vision on it is really, really interesting too.
Yeah. So before we go, do you want to talk a little bit about Rubik's North America All-Stars?
Yeah, definitely. All Stars is going to be so cool because I didn't watch the last one, but this one is really interesting. So it's 30 solvers, right? And there was actually a qualification time. I think the qualification time was, I think it was sub 7.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so sub 7, there are going to be 3 rounds. I think the first 2 rounds are just going to be like normal averages of 5, and the last round is going to be head to head. And it's happening on Tuesday. Whereas North American Championships is happening Thursday through Sunday with 3x3 finals on Sunday. So I think it's going to be a really interesting, precursor, preview, if you will, of what we can expect to see, because it's on a lot smaller of a scale. The viewership might be higher technically because it's going to be in the Mall of America, which, what? Cubing in the Mall of America? That's
yeah,
amazing.
Let's take a pause for a second. If you guys have never been to the Mall of America, myself included, I've never been there. You have to understand that the Mall of America is amazing.
It's insane.
It is one of the best tourist places that you can go to in the United States, right? It is huge. There's a lot of space. And I don't know. I did know the exact statistics at a time, but I don't remember it now. But there will literally be hundreds of thousands of people coming and going through that competition, and it's going to be crazy. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but I just wanted to emphasize how big this was.
No, definitely, because I think like that's the insane part, right? Is like people, sorry, it's not like people who are like watching the whole thing, right? But people coming and going to see speedcubing like that, like, and obviously they have no judgment. They're like, wow, they if they saw like a 30-second solve, they'd be like, this is impressive. But still, to get those kind of eyes on cubing, to have such a cool event with the world's best solvers there, I think it's such a unique opportunity. And it's definitely going to be, I think, a little bit of a precursor for what we can see in 3x3 finals and, well, in 3x3 in general as we go into NEC. And I'm sure the competitors are treating that as well. It's like, well, this is the chance on the smaller stage to really see what you can bring.
Yeah, and, it's a smaller stage in terms of maybe the actual merit that you get out of this. But the way I really think about North American All-Stars, and for pretty much any All-Star series going forward, to me, it's a celebration of our world's fastest speedcubers.
Yeah.
You can think about it like an all-star game, but at the end of the day, we're gathering 30 people who need to make the qualification of sub 7, right? Or I could be misremembering, but at this point, I know all the competitors are sub 7, so it's practically sub 7, right? Gathered into one space, tucked away for an entire day. We're doing a broadcast. We're hosting on social media. There's going to be a lot of media sessions. It's just going to be a fantastic day to celebrate them. And I think this is something that speedcubing can really lean in on going forward. The exact formatting of it, I don't know, right? But some sort of celebratory event that's outside the actual competition space. Because as we spent the previous 20-something minutes talking about, those competitions are stressful. But what I will tell you is All-Stars, although it's stressful, definitely to the competitors will be more fun.
Definitely. I mean, because like we said, it's the Mall of America. Who doesn't want to do Rubik's Cube solves in the Mall of America, right? Like, it's gonna be insane. It's an official competition in the Mall of America. Like,
yeah,
it's just gonna be so wild. And I think it's definitely gonna be a lot of fun. There's also, I heard, there's gonna be some hosts as well. So I think that'll definitely make things very, very interesting.
I will be hosting the WCA Instagram as well. That'll be a fun time. So you might see my face plastered on certain areas, but it's really not about me, right? But it is really an honor to be a part of this type of event. The board of directors found it very important to attend this All-Stars event, so you'll see 3 of us there. Yeah, Nick Silvestri, he'll be there. Blake Thompson and myself, we're all gonna be there to go show out for All-Stars, even though we can't compete. So we're gonna help facilitate the competition and kind of be brand representatives if necessary.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really cool, and I definitely appreciate the fact that board is there. Like, most of the board being there means that, like, okay, well, it's an important thing for the board as well, and all the board are in like important positions too. Nick on the live stream, you're doing the hosting. I think Blake is also like staffing / doing like coordination role. So I think it's a really good way also to demonstrate and show off, like, it's like the WCA itself is like, yeah, like, this is an important event to us. And I mean, that it's a no-brainer to me, but
yeah, I would say that specifically, maybe, that I kind of brushed on this a little bit before, but since All-Stars might be a little bit less stress and might be more fun, we could see a lot of 3s, not from just Maddie, obviously, but from a lot of people. So, I wouldn't be surprised if we get some world record 2, 3, 4 singles that come out of this. There's just in these situations, when you want to chase a single, the more solves, the better. And there's just going to be a lot of top-level solving that's happening in the next week. So I expect something to happen. So best of luck to all the competitors that are in All-Stars and in the championship.
Yeah, I mean, that is going to be amazing. And, it's not just next week. The week after, we're going to have European Championships. I don't know where that's going to be broadcast. It will be broadcast somewhere. But that's also going to have a lot of top-level solving as well. So it'll be really cool to see what all goes on in Europe. It's really, really cool having like the 2 major championships kind of going back to back. And then, it's a little unfortunate that Asian Championships is in November, but I still think like having 2 continentals back to back it's just so hype.
There's also South American Champs right after.
Oh, that's right. Yes, South American Champs is like sandwiched in between. I completely forgot.
Yeah, so it's going to be an amazing couple weeks, especially for results. And we're gonna crown a lot of champions, right? So it's gonna be an amazing time. Manu, I think we have to go. So just wanted to remind our listeners that you guys will be able to catch Manu on the broadcast for All Stars, as well as North American Championship on the Rubik's official channel. And North American All Stars will also be broadcast on the WCA channel as well. So feel free to catch his commentary there. They have an excellent commentary team. And we believe that Happy Feet Production is going to provide a great show. So
Definitely.
I'm assuming so, or else maybe Cubing USA wouldn't select them, right? So we'll see what happens. But really looking forward to that. If you guys are attending All Stars or NAC, feel free to say hi to us. But yeah.
Yes, please do. I think it's so hype. I love meeting Overinspected listeners throughout the country.
Yeah, we are an open book. Feel free to chat with us and whatever. Honestly, Manu, the fact is, no one's gonna do that. So,
so you say that, right? But the competition I went to in Ohio for the solar eclipse, right? Someone came up to me and it was like, "Hey, I recognize you from the podcast." I'm like, "This is Ohio. I haven't competed here since 2013. I don't know how you know me, but hello, I'm glad you listen to the podcast." So, hey, anything can happen. There's 900 people who are attending and competing at North American Championships. Surely some people have to be listeners, right?
Yeah, Vishwa, if you're listening, shout out to you.
This is the greatest speedcubing podcast, by the way, right? So if you're not listening, then yeah, exactly.
You really missed out on the intro opportunity. Now that I realize,
I guess. Okay, you know what? It's like a soft drop because the real OGs know. But I mean, anyone who's listening, spread the word. Greatest speedcubing podcast out there.
Overinspected, and we were just thinking about this. So when we were making the podcast, obviously we were thinking about the name. I think that was in episode 1. We were talking about what name we would come up with. Come on, it's undisputed.
Overinspected. I love Overinspected. It's so good.
It's undisputed. I mean, like reflecting upon our seasons and our journeys, we just simply have the best name because we
actually have the best name.
It's short, sweet, it hits,
and it's not like too cubing-y, like Overinspected. Like you could use that for honestly anything, but it's like just cubing enough to the point where it's like, all right, like these guys, okay, maybe they don't know what they're talking about, but but it's like, like these guys are like, we're cubing first, but we do a lot of analysis and everything, right? So that's what I hope that's what you're here for. If you're just here to listen to us ramble, then well, I guess this is the part of the segment of the podcast for you, because I'm just rambling at this point. Let's get out of here.
Yeah, all right, let's call it. We've tooted our own horns for long enough. I think 2 minutes is plenty. So we'll catch y'all on the flip side. Until the next episode, peace out, everyone.
Bye-bye, everyone.